Today's first topic is going to be responding to comments and talking about debating and platforming bigots, which coincides with next week's theme of going back to the basics. Because again, I think we've forgotten, like, why is racism bad? Why is transphobia bad? Why is bigotry bad? Why are we so casually talking about women losing their right to vote? What are we talking about? Right? And it's like we forgot. It's like I don't know, maybe we lost the plot. Maybe we just forgot about how serious it is to have these conversations. Like, these are not fun conversations. They are serious conversations. And yet throughout all of history, we've always talked about people's basic rights. Like, we're talking about our favorite food category, right? So, okay, let's go back to what we talked about last stream. This clip right here, somebody tagged me and said, Brittany, can you explain this further? So let's watch old Brittany, and then new Brittany, I'll tell you what's up. Okay, here's original Brittany. Okay, remember when Destiny talked to Jordan Peterson? That was the same thing, where Peterson came out really blazing with Destiny, and then Destiny was like kind of playing ball. And then Peterson's like, oh, you're not the leftist I thought you were. Because they're not leftists. They're liberals. Hello? Destiny and Kyla would 100% go on Joe Rogan if he called. I, on principle, cannot go on Joe Rogan. That's the difference. I, on principle, cannot show up to Joe Rogan's podcast. But they would eat that up. They'd be like, this is my opportunity. Which is why if Hasan ever goes on that podcast, but he already does, right? He went on Theo Von's. You know Hasan would go on Joe Rogan's. And I'm saying, no, that is not your job. You're not a politician. Though Kamala Harris should have gone on Joe Rogan because she's going to be the president. You don't need to be on Joe Rogan. You're a YouTuber. That's the dilemma. Are you a YouTuber? Or are you a public speaker and a politician and an activist, right? Because if you're just going on Joe Rogan, like, what is this for? And come on, what is this really for?
No.
Okay, pause. Okay, so that was past Brittany. Now, the comment I got in my chat was, hey, Britt, could you expand on this? Do you believe it's okay for politicians should go on opposing side platforms? How is it different? I think they meant, why do you believe? Because obviously I did answer that question in that statement that they tagged, where they said, do you believe it's okay for politicians? But I literally said, obviously, Kamala Harris should go on Joe Rogan. So I think they mean to say, why do you believe it's okay for politicians to go on? Politicians are our employees. They are meant to represent us and meant to talk to the most of us. And going on platforms is their job. Talking to the all Americans is their job. Politicians don't get to discriminate on which Americans they represent or advocate for. We are advocating for all Americans to get basic education, basic housing, basic food, basic things taken care of, right? So obviously, like, you have to go on that platform. When you're a YouTuber, again, you have to decide, are you a YouTuber, a content creator, or are you something different? Are you trying to be more professional in a different way? If you are professionally a YouTuber, your only reason for going on Joe Rogan is clout. Because YouTube, first and foremost, is a creative endeavor. So you're just marketing yourself. You're just promoting yourself. Now, if Hasan says, I actually am doing this to poach some of the few people from Joe Rogan's audience into my own, I would say that it doesn't seem to be a tactic that actually works. Now, somebody else said, I really respect your progressive on ethics and harm reduction. I totally get why you're cautious about engaging with platforms like Joe Rogan. I do feel differently on the topic, though, since his platform is already so huge. It doesn't feel like opting out really takes away his influence, but going on can at least expose some people to viewpoints they wouldn't normally hear. I don't think your take is wrong. I just don't see the impact piece different. I just see the impact piece differently because of the sheer size of Joe's platform. Still really appreciate how thoughtfully you explained your reasoning. I think if Hasan went on Joe Rogan's pod, it would more work to reduce harm when it already exists. Even one person hearing it reflecting on things is a win for humans, I think. I used to think like that. And I did. And that's why I was collabing with Abram Preach and all these boys and being nice to people and being kind and saying things like I would go on Joe Rogan. Except when you are platforming with these people, you have to be nice to them. You actually have to hold yourself back. Like when Hasan went on Theo Von, who advocated and participated in getting Trump elected. Okay, I used to also believe this, but let me tell you this, that there is a certain thing that happens where I feel like the scrutiny that comes down, why were you collabing with Destiny if you think you're such a bad person? Why are you collabing with this person if you think they're such a bad person? Because this hope you have of saying, I'm going to collab with people, you know what I mean, doesn't actually exist when you get down to the data of it all. I don't think it changes too many people's minds. Now, I'll tell you this. There are some people in my audience that I think are some of the greatest commenters I've had in a long time. And they say, apparently, that they came from Destiny's community, that they used to watch Destiny and then they saw us collab and they left Destiny and joined my community. And I think that's great. But the harassment, the amount of misogyny, the ableism, the amount of negative content that was created using my name doesn't justify the 20 or so people I poached from that audience. Like, it just doesn't. I put out more harm during that era of my life, collabing with Destiny, humanizing Sneeko, humanizing Asmin, humanizing all these boys, humanizing ABBA, even though we would disagree. At the end of the day, I did so much more harm validating these boys than I ever did poaching those 20 or so people out of their audiences. And so for me, like, I just know for myself it's impossible. I've never seen it work for Hasan. I've never seen it work for anybody else. All it does is validate these guys as being the cool conservatives who can talk to everyone, even Hasan. Because remember, from the conservative perspective, they don't care. Like, they just say, look, Hasan thinks I'm cool too. And everyone goes, wow, Theo's so cool. He can talk to everybody from all sides. It doesn't actually do what you think it's going to do. And so, like, in your head, you think like, oh yes, I'm going to help. This is going to be great. I'm going to like expose my ideas to other people. So that's why I say directly collabing with them is different than covering their content. Covering their content does bring in their viewers, and their viewers will watch you because they want to like promote their faves. And that's a much better chance, I think, a much better way of getting those people. And look, the people who aren't willing to see it, they're not going to be the ones you poach anyways. The ones you're seriously going to get the chance of ever influencing or ever like offering an alternative way of thinking, everybody have to be open-minded enough. They'll come across your content. Now, third comment says, Brittany, I love you, but in my opinion, that belief is terrible. Why are you platforming? In quotations, Charlie Kirk was already heavily platformed. That's one. Two, the public needs to see how dumb these positions are. Not see it and think people like Charlie Kirk are the answer. With no challenge leads to America being a Nazi Germany 2.0. Once again, platforming is different than rebutting. So you don't have to collab with Charlie Kirk to make content about Charlie Kirk. Okay? You do not need to invite Charlie Kirk into your home in which you're buddy-buddy and laughing and getting along with, even when you're disagreeing. Because what you're saying is like, they're the same. What you're saying is like, we are in the same place. That's like talking to Richard Spencer, right? Like, I am talking about inviting a Nazi to your house. Okay? You have to understand that my family is convinced Nick Fuentes is literally just a nice boy that the media is misunderstanding. Nick Fuentes! And that's because people keep platforming him. And every time he goes on these shows, he acts like a sweet little angel. And nobody actually goes to his original content and talks to him. All those collabs Destiny did with Nick Fuentes just normalized him. And I'm saying I normalized Destiny by collabing with him. Like, we're all at fault in different ways, but that's what I'm saying. All of this like young, naive hope that talking to bigoted people will make them less bigoted doesn't seem to be true. It doesn't seem to be true. If anything, it just validates them. This person goes on to say, this reason is why Asmin will never talk to people live. He knows being challenged live will chip away at his influence because his viewers will see him being ill-informed and uneducated. No, wrong. I'll show you Charlie Kirk and Hasan talking, and you tell me who had more influence in those years. Hasan talked to Charlie Kirk, and Charlie Kirk was the one with the phone call to the White House. All it did was validate Charlie Kirk. Asmin doesn't do collaborations for Asmin reasons. But Asmin is not Charlie. Charlie's Turning Point USA is in your children's schools. He is friends or was friends with Vice President J.D. Vance. His wife is hanging out with Trump. Hasan is just, let's be real, he's not seriously political. Charlie Kirk was more seriously political than Hasan. It was obvious to me that Charlie wanted to be the president or something. It was obvious he was seriously going to be in politics. Hasan's never going to run, as far as I know. He's not actually involved. Okay, he covers politics on stream. Charlie obviously had dreams for something bigger. Okay, that's not, by the way, a point towards Charlie. I'm not saying anything good about Charlie right now. I hope you know that. That I'm not saying anything like about his character. I'm saying literally, it's obvious to me that he was using Hasan and using all these people to build credibility for himself to eventually bring in voters, because guarantee you if he had lived, he would have had an amazing chance at being a politician. Conservatives would have eaten it up, bro. Okay? This person goes on to say, now my personal position is that I believe we need more people with stronger conviction on issues. We care advocating for those issues. Hasan has shown himself to be transphobic. I'm sure Destiny is as well. We need people who have deconstructed to enter these spaces and advocate intelligently and leave those spaces with more support than they went in. But so are you talking about politically? Are you talking about like politically or YouTubers? Are you talking about people making content? Are you talking about politicians and advocates? Right? Who are you talking about? Who people? What people? Are you know what I mean? Like, who are you? What does that mean, right? But the support will prevent Nazi Germany. I don't know about other people. I don't want violence to be my reality. I, black man, want a life where me and my trans and gay friends, Palestinian friends, atheist friends, Mexican friends, and women friends can go have fun and not have to worry about stuff. I'm sure you do too. This is how we will achieve it. I just disagree that like, this is how we will achieve it is not just like rooted in like a naive desire for things that are just very antithetical to what it means to be humans. Like antithetical meaning like, human beings are obviously this, and we have been this for always. And so it's like this idea that if I just platform it, if I talk to these people, if I go out there and I debate them, it'll be different. Like how many fucking Jubilee videos do we have to see before we recognize this shit isn't working? It's just interesting. It's just something to pass the time. It's just something to be angry about. It's not working. And that's because it never was meant to work for anything more than a cash grab. It was not meant to do anything more than give people a sense of validation. And yes, I know you and your brains go, regular people brains go, and I'll show you a conservative regular brain saying the same thing. Oh, if we don't platform these people, if we don't talk about them, maybe they'll be canceled. No, this is a lady talking to Megyn Kelly.
Nice to see you.
Yes, I love you. You are an inspiration to me. You make me a stronger American. So thank you very much.
That's beautiful.
We all know how entertaining the clips of The View can be.
Yes.
But might it be more beneficial to ignore their ridiculous dialogue?
What?
Which would result in their show being canceled.
No, it wouldn't. We need something to laugh about, right? If you guys watch and listen to my show, which I assume you do because you're here, we have to laugh. What are we if we don't laugh at the news? Like, you can't take the news too seriously. And that's why I love those morons so much. I mean, that's what's been so shocking about the Karine Jean-Pierre media tour. Like, when you are too dumb for The View, where do you go from there? I genuinely don't know.
So like they need people to make fun of, to make content, but it only makes conservatives feel more empowered. That's why they talk to liberal leftists, right? There's just no way about it. And so again, platforming is different than talking about. Talking about is different. Okay, giving a seat at the table is different. Okay?
I don't know what my role is anymore.
Those 8 words, spoken by Ezra Klein to Ta-Nehisi Coates in a podcasted conversation last month, have echoed around my head ever since I first heard them. First in a clip to TikTok, and then twice more as I listened and re-listened to the full conversation. My first impulse was simply to dunk. Klein's role of professional political opinion haver is, after all, a pretty strange one these days. In an era where anyone can share their thoughts on the events of the day to X or TikTok, the idea that some people get paid to do so feels almost quaint. When the analysis is as weak as Charlie Kirk was practicing politics the right way, it's easy to wonder if it's time to admit that the whole newspaper opinion writer game has run.
Like, what part of Ezra Klein's article did anything but empower conservatives to think that Charlie Kirk was right on anything when he was a bigoted person? Look how harmful this was. Charlie Kirk was practicing politics the right way. Thanks, Ezra Klein, for absolutely fucking nothing. If that's what you want us to do, because that's what it would take. These conservatives will never not look stupid to their audience. Or no, never look stupid to their audience. Their audience will always think they're smart. And then on top of that, the only people that are willing to make concessions or show some humanity will just be seen as like weak. And this isn't even true. Charlie Kirk was not doing politics right. That's what's even funnier about this article title. He literally was not doing it right.
Its cause. And yet, the more I've thought about it, the more I've realised that Klein's uncertainty wasn't trivial. It isn't just him. So much of our collective political debate right now seems to be shaped by a widespread confusion about what any of our roles in that debate should be. That confusion runs throughout Klein's conversation with Coates. It shapes the whole of the fiery debates which followed Charlie Kirk's death and much of his career. And it was the driving force behind the exasperating complaints.
Remember, debating conservatives only makes them more popular. Talking about conservatives is just like the reality of what has to happen because they're famous. But like debating them directly is just giving them content. If nobody ever debated Charlie Kirk, what would be his platform? Explain it to me. You know what I'm saying? Like he would still have one, but it wouldn't be this. This is fully participating. This is engaging. You just did work for free. You just worked for free so Charlie could make $1 million off you. You just paid Charlie Kirk. Do you know what I'm saying? It's different if I make a video about Charlie, at least I'm getting paid. These people show up for free. Charlie gets paid and it boosts him into, you're the reason Charlie Kirk is like rich, basically, directly.
Cancel culture and wokeness which dominated the last decade. The internet has completely blown open the gates to the metaphorical public square. Almost anyone can speak, and with a genuine chance that they might be heard. That's been a powerful shift. We've gained access to countless new voices, many of whom would never have had the social capital to become opinion writers at the New York Times. But that flattening of the public sphere can also be weaponized. Politicians and celebrities complain about online criticism as if they're just ordinary posters getting cyberbullied. Users with minuscule followings.
Exactly. As if they're regular ass people, they're not. That's what I'm saying. Are you a regular ass person or are you not? Are you just a Joe Schmo, your neighbor, posting your cute cat videos? Or are you fucking moving policy around? That's why when people kept saying, Charlie Kirk is just a podcaster. Charlie Kirk was not just a podcaster. He was not just a podcaster. And when you keep saying that, you're totally erasing the implications of Turning Point USA in your kids' schools. You're erasing his connection to the White House. You're totally transforming him into what conservatives think of him as. I'm just a guy sharing ideas. He was just a boy giving opinions. He wasn't just a boy. He was a man making deliberate stances in a bigoted way against minority people and became a multi-millionaire, and he grew his connections to the White House. This is not just a podcaster. That's why I'm saying even Hasan has like 1 foot in, 1 foot out. Make a decision, Hasan. Are you more than a streamer or are you just a streamer? Make a decision. And that's why I'm saying this isn't, you got to be careful about what you call people. I am more of just a YouTuber than these people, obviously. But even then, I'm held to a standard. Even though my platform and my reach is so much smaller, I obviously am still held to a standard. Yes? Yes. Okay.
Only need to have one post go viral to end up facing levels of scrutiny once reserved for heads of state. Journalists mistake fleeting trends for vibrant political movements. And, most troublingly, authoritarian presidents find that they can use the social media posts of private citizens to justify campaigns of retribution against their opponents.
Okay, now, hold on. This is, if you don't know this channel, this is Tom Nicholas. You guys can check him out if you'd like. I forgot to here, I'll even put that in the chat. Okay, next video I want to show you. This is a Rap Latte. I don't watch them, but FD Signifier was on this podcast talking about Amanda Seales going on Jubilee. Okay, 20 conservatives against one radical black liberal, black leftist, whatever they called Amanda Seales. Okay, listen to the way they're having this conversation.
8 times out of 10, if there's 20 people on that show, I guarantee you no less than 15 are just outright coons.
17. Yeah.
I'm trying to be nice. Look at this.
I watched the video.
You watched it? Okay.
I watched the video. I watched the entire video eating breakfast, and my TV almost didn't make it. I'm yelling at Amanda Seales. I'm yelling at this kid. This one kid was like, she said, well, race doesn't exist or it's a social construct or something like that. He's like, it's not biological. That's what she said. And the kid goes, of course it is. And I was like, I can't. How can you argue with someone who just doesn't agree with facts? I can't argue with someone that doesn't understand or agree with any type of facts. And you make perfect sense when you said that there's the black traditionalists who look at themselves as conservative because they just want traditional values of blackness that they were raised on and concepts of what it meant to be black in America. And that might lean you in that way. And then everyone else just hates the idea of being black. And they don't want to say it out loud.
They're hoping to be picked to be the next Candace Owens or something else.
Exactly.
But low-key, Candace Owens on the low, being on this side of the camera, is making sure she is never getting replaced. She is steadily out here knocking motherfuckers down out her spot.
I feel
it's so
like
funny.
Key things for them is we are not victims. Like, I am not a victim, right? And them over there on the left, they are victims because they think that white people are their big problem. And I'm not a victim. And I see reality because I know that black people are black people's problem. That, right? That seemed to me to be the core.
That is their core thing. And that's like...
Listen, all of my life, I have worked so diligently to talk to my family, my flesh and blood. People have known me my whole life and cannot get them to change their minds or gather tools. Some of them, yes, okay, a little bit, but not as quickly as you would think, okay? And it takes a lot of work to deconstruct where you come from, and it takes a lot of work for the world to do it. And now you're expecting people who are making entertainment first and foremost to be the reason people change their minds radically. And I know a lot of people here are going to say like, well, how did you learn to change your mind? Yes, the tools I gathered from people over the years, but mostly it was my willingness to change. It was my willingness to put my pride aside and to say like, that's wrong. I'm going to do something different now. All of my life, I have been, over the years, and I'm sure a lot of you feel this way, like surpassing the ones who like popped our bubbles when we were kids. Like, you know, when you come out of religion, you go into the atheist movement and you're like, oh my God, these guys are so smart. And then you eventually surpass them and you're like, these guys are idiots and they're bigots. Okay, that cycle, it's like you have to ask your question, like how did guys who when I was younger were so outspoken against bigotry became the most bigoted people ever? And it's because they are not deconstructing. They're not continuing to deconstruct. So then you have to ask yourself, okay, why is it you? You have to accept that though you're not like special, you are uniquely in the position of being the category of people that changes their mind. You are kind of the exception, but not the exception in an arrogant, narcissistic way. You are literally the exception that you even changed your mind statistically. Kind of like if you gain weight, statistically, if you lose it, you're kind of the exception. Most people don't do that. Like most people are deeply struggling. Most people do not get out of their financial positions. Most people do not end up being richer than they were initially. So you kind of have to remember that even though you changed your mind, and the question is, did you even change your mind, right? The reason you changed your mind was probably not because you saw a debate between Nick Fuentes and Destiny or, you know, Charlie Kirk and Hasan. You probably changed your mind because you were ready. You probably shifted narrative because you were ready to change your own. You probably grew in that moment because of an embodied change within you that could have happened with any other tool, but ultimately you are the only reason that decision was made. Not alone, but the only reason it could actually happen. I'll give you an example. This is Charlie Kirk and Hasan 7 years ago. And a reminder, so this is 2018, reminder that 2 weeks before, when Charlie Kirk died, 2 weeks later, Hasan was supposed to debate him. Once again, for what purpose? Other than association. And look, I understand, and you understand, listen to me when I say this. Conservatives are able to get ahead because they're willing to do things that other people aren't willing to do. So if you play the game like Kyle Kulinski and all these men want to do, where they say we should go as low as Republicans to get ahead, you have now just become a Republican. You have to be willing to let evil rise to power in order to not do what evil does to rise to power. And yes, the consequence of that reality is they will rise to power. And then you must radically accept that this is the world. This is the world reflected. Like this is us reflected back to ourselves. And this is why I say, as much as you want to believe that human beings are more than animals on a planet or more than this moment in time, they're simply existing now in the most present. And in the most present, we are deeply flawed people, which is why we have to be less bad every day instead of more good. Okay? And it starts with all of us. But yeah, I don't expect bigoted people to change their minds tomorrow until they really want to even see themselves as bigoted, right? Here we go.
Look, Republicans love talking about the stock market. You mentioned it in your introduction. The stock market's doing well. Consumer confidence is up. Okay, dude. Well, the 84% of the stock market is owned by the top 10% of wealth. Like, when the stock market is doing well, it's not doing well for you. It's just doing well for those guys. But you can be certain that when the stock market is not doing well, it won't be good for you. Absolutely not. No, sir. Because everything is taken away from the workers. we talk about like people always come up to me and tell me, hey, Hasan, why do you want to take away my earnings? And I told them, I'm not trying to take away your earnings. I'm trying to make sure your bosses give back what is rightfully yours. These are your earnings. You work for them, okay? And it is very obvious that...
Okay, Discord said, did I change my mind or did I discover what I really cared about? Exactly, Discord. Okay, this is about a bigger issue. So when I say don't platform Charlie Kirk, I'm saying this is not helping. This might in one way make you feel like it is helping, but this is not helping.
Corporations are not magnanimously going to anytime soon give you back those wages, so we have to implement regulation. We have to implement certain policies. This could be UBI. I don't really like it that much, but this could potentially be taxes on the wealthy and corporations.
See right there? See how Charlie, look at this.
I don't really like it that much, but this could potentially be...
So Charlie goes, yeah, I agree with Hasan. You remember when Charlie Kirk died and people said, I didn't agree with everything he said, but I'm sad he died. And everyone's like, wait. What did you agree with him on? See, that's the question. What do we agree on? Do you ever talk to a conservative and you try to see where you guys actually like meet up so you guys can kind of like humanize each other? Yeah, it doesn't help. It doesn't actually work. I thought it used to work. I genuinely thought it used to work. It doesn't. It doesn't. Because I would look at my parents and I would say, we want small government, right? And they'd be like, yeah. And I'm like, yeah, because we don't want government in our business, right? And they're like, yes. And I'm like, so we don't want government in our relationships. And they're like, well, unless they're gay. And I'm like, oh, because they don't actually agree with you. They don't actually share your belief in, quote, smaller government, because smaller government isn't a belief. It's a dream. It's a utopia that doesn't exist. We need the right amount of government, not small, not big, the right amount. We need the right kind of government. And it said you're all focused on small, big, small, big, small, big. Okay, it's not the size of anything. It's about it being the right size. Okay? And that's the issue we're facing with strangers, with conservatives, with other people. Like, these are systems that stay in place because we're busy arguing about like basic civil rights when it should be a duh, which is why we're going back to the basics starting next week. Like, why racism bad? Because we've genuinely like not contended with the reality that most people are pretty okay with most things. Guys, when somebody gets raped and the question is, what were you doing? There's not a conversation there. Don't answer that question. Okay? Don't answer that question. That's not a real question. Okay? And that's the issue. We keep having conversations with people that literally say, well, why were you there? What do you mean, why was I there? You mean, why do I exist on the planet? Why did I run into this person? Why do I know this human being? Why did it happen to me? Half of us are born into families where it happens. What do you mean, why was I there? Okay? If you come from a background that literally always victim blames children, then you have to understand these conservatives who are like, we care about like children. No, they don't. And their actions follow. It can't be what you just say. That's why Joe Rogan rose to such prominence too. He was so interesting. He was asking good questions. He was so open-minded, but he has doubled down to become the most like conspiratorial like person with the largest platform. Going on his podcast just validates that conspiracy, unless you're a politician, in which it is then your job to represent the people. Okay? If you're actually working for the people, you have to go on the podcasts. Kamala Harris not going on Dave Ramsey while Trump did, not going on Joe Rogan while Trump did was a mistake. That was a bad decision she made, okay? Hasan going on these platforms, YouTubers going on these platforms, that is nothing more than a cash grab. And no matter how much you justify it to yourself, no matter how much you convince yourself, you're just being as naive as I was, as when I was collabing with Destiny and all these other men, thinking like, oh, this would make a difference. Well, Sneeko just heard it the right way. Sneeko would have a change of heart. If these boys just hear it the right way, no, they won't. And even the men who think they're the good ones, they're not going to until they realize like there's so much more to deconstruct here. And that includes Hasan, who time and time again has been called out, okay, for his misogyny, anti-blackness, so on and so forth. And he's done nothing to really contend with it. But he's all we got, right? So I guess it's good enough. It's not good enough. But he's just a YouTuber, am I right? What does it matter? Oh no, he's like he's like the most important political voice on the left. This is our best? That should tell you something, that this is our best. That this is the person who rose to prominence and not anybody else. Don't you think it's interesting that Hasan, out of all the people who could have risen to prominence, we made him famous? There was nobody better, you think? Really? And that's me saying it as somebody who is progressive, obviously. But really, you think there was nobody better? Don't you think that's also a sign of patriarchy and white supremacy? That Hasan was the one who rose to power? But sure, okay.
Taxes on the wealthy and corporations. Like, there are many different ways to do it. Or this could be regulating the wages in some way, or allowing unions to exist in countries. I can't believe you're booing this, man. Your father has been, look, your parents have benefited from this. Your parents have benefited from this.
Charlie's going to come now. So first of all, if you want some more numbers, Hispanic median income is at $50,000 right now a year, which is the highest it's ever been in American history under President Donald Trump. Wages have gone up 3.8% in the last 18 months. Hispanic unemployment is the lowest it's ever been. Black unemployment.
In the last, what month? 3 months?
Hasan, for the love of God.
And like, look, that argumentation that Charlie Kirk is using, that Hispanic families are benefiting the most under Trump, is what probably helped convince them to vote for him. And now he's picking up their families willy-nilly using ICE. He literally picked Trump voting Hispanics off the ground and put them in El Salvador in all of these prisons. And they said, I didn't think it would happen to me. Welcome to Trump's America. Let me tell you right now that if I, for whatever reason, find out my parents, for whatever reason, were picked up by ICE, or they find out that they decided that their paperwork wasn't up to par or something rather than that, and they have to get deployed or sent back to Iraq, I'll just tell you this right now, absolutely not surprised, even though they've been here for so long. Who gets to decide how long you've been here and now everything is good? Now, technically, my parents did it, quote, legally, which is why they get to have that immigrant chip on their shoulder of like, well, we did it legally. You didn't do it legally. Your parents did it legally. You were kids, basically kids. Okay? My dad was 18, but like, whatever. You were basically kids. You didn't even do it correctly. Your parents did it correctly. And by the way, the word correctly is a very interesting thing when it was that long ago. Okay? So it's like, everybody slow down about who claims they did it right and blah, 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 blah.
Want me to finish, okay?
No, 3 months, that's a ridiculous point. That's a ridiculous reference point, Charlie.
Okay,
that's
what?
The point.
The lowest ever
I gave
black
you 60
unemployment rate.
years. I gave you a 60-year window, and you said the last 3 months have been 3% better. Crazy.
3.8% wage growth. $50,000 annual median income for Hispanic family, which is the highest it's ever been in American history. 3.9 million people have gone off food stamps under this administration 18 months, which is something that everybody should applaud.
I love
the workforce. We have more job openings than we have people to fill those jobs right now. 3.7% unemployment rate. 4.2%
open our borders.
GDP
Thank
rate.
you.
Hasan. Large average tax cut for
Which is why we should need
$2,800 a year.
Obviously, there's more jobs available than people taking them, so we should bring in more immigrants, right?
Here's the big philosophical difference and problem, is that Hasan says, well, I don't want to take your worker earnings away. I want to go after your employer, essentially to make sure. I don't have the right to tell anybody what to do with any of their money. That's the big difference, Hasan, is that...
So he has no right to tell anybody what to do with their money, but he has every right to tell people what to do with their orientations, their children, how to raise people, their wives, everything else. He'll never tell you what to do with your money, but he'll tell you what to do with everything else.
You're trying to
It's their money, Charlie. It's the workers' money. They are just taking away and accumulating the profits for themselves. I'm not, by the way, I'm not even saying abolish all profits.
This is a distinctly Marxist argument, by the way.
Just because it's Marxist doesn't mean it's a bad idea. Stop being an idiot, dude. God damn it. Like,
okay, so...
Remember when Hasan watched Charlie Kirk die on stream and he's like, man, that's like one of the worst things I've ever seen? Yeah, it was a pretty intense thing to see. But really, was it the worst thing you've seen given that there's a genocide happening? You know what I mean? Like, again, I understand he knew Charlie and that adds a layer of devastation to it. But that's kind of the point. You are more devastated watching a bigot die, right? Because you knew him. And that's how bigotry stays, because I know them, I'm more devastated. I agree. If many of my family members died, I would be more devastated than if a stranger died. That's true. But not for the reason you think. For a different reason, for a more intimate reason. In the same way Gojo, mourned Ghetto. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's a different feeling, but you still have to do the right thing. That's why I say values over loyalty. I love my family and I would hate to see them ever die at the hands of a mob. And I also would understand that should there ever be some sort of, quote, civil war, it would obviously mean that we would be on opposite sides. And how devastating is that? Okay, that they are putting us in this position. Now, somebody might say, well, Brittany, you say they shouldn't have to, I wish my parents didn't put me in this position. I wish my family didn't put me in this position. But aren't you putting them in that position? No, because my position is about inclusivity and their position is about bigotry. Their position creates it where we can't talk about gay relationships at the table. My position creates it where they're allowed to talk about their religion at mine. We're allowed to talk about everything at my table. Their table is limited. So no, the person creating the limitation is the one creating the limitation. Now, of course, there is a limitation I create at my table, being that you have to be kind and compassionate when communicating, obviously. And we know this is possible because religious people communicate every day in a kind and compassionate way. Your inability to communicate your religion in a kind and compassionate way is a you problem more than anything else. That is a you problem, okay? Religious people every day are more than able to be very kind and compassionate when talking about our differences. It's a you problem that you're unable to do this, that you rub people the wrong way, that you say things that are hurtful, that you say things that are abhorrent. That's a you problem, okay?
I'm so glad you mentioned that. So
It's so silly, like as if we implement
Hasan,
socialized medicine,
Hasan,
we're
I
going to
didn't
eat
say
rats like Venezuela.
I didn't say it was
because
bad.
it's
I said it was Marxist, and now I'm going to tell you why it's bad.
Oh, okay.
The problem with the Marxist
Venezuela.
argument is the incentive structure. In a free market system, incentives, everybody is incentive to create value.
Wait, what are you guys talking about in chat when you say, like, I doubt he was literal? He might not have been literal, but I don't know. Who are you talking about was not literal? Who? What are we talking about? You mean Hasan saying that's like the worst thing I ever saw? That's even worse that he wasn't literal. That's almost even worse. Then he's pandering to the conservatives so they don't come after him, and so he feels more like he's humanized Charlie. Yes, it was a horrible thing we all saw, but it was by far not the most horrible thing we've ever seen. But it was horrible. But you know, right now, in that moment, he was on camera. He was seeing something for the first time. That's what I'm saying. Hasan knew he was on camera, but why did he even look it up on stream? Charlie Kirk just died. He was shot in the face, and then you go and Google it on stream? I get it. I've done that too, where I've watched things, and like when you're on camera, you react differently. Okay? But that's the point. It's like, yes, it was hard to see, but also, again, this is what I'm saying about the difference between leaders and not leaders. And I'm not saying I'm a leader, right? You guys know that. I'm saying leaders hold the responsibility of reacting the right way in moments of struggle. And none of these people are leaders, but they certainly are in positions of that because they're the best we have. And that is devastating. That's my point. Hasan should feel devastated that he is the most prominent streamer. Instead, I know for a fact it strokes his fucking ego, bro. Opinion, know for a fact. Okay? That's what I'm saying. The most popular people, you know what I'm saying? And again, this isn't to say that there's a perfection that we're aiming for. It's to say that there's a humility we should be seeking. So when you ask me, Brittany, what's your issue with Hasan going on Joe Rogan? I ask you, what do you think this is helping? What do you really think this is helping? Except to validate Joe Rogan as being open-minded to people who think differently than him, because Hasan's never going to be given that prop. He's just going to be seen as what it is, clout chasing. Because the grift is, or the hope is, maybe not grift, that's a strong word, but the hope is, oh, more people will see me if I go on Joe Rogan. So you're not there just to have a good conversation with Joe Rogan. You're there to poach his audience. Don't you see, like, how that's probably the reason Joe Rogan isn't having Hasan on? It's not, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's the point. So the conservatives would be like, fuck Hasan. He's not even here because he really likes Joe. He hates Joe. He hates our guy. You know what I mean? He's here just to trick us. They're going to see it as what it is. It's a trick, isn't it? And that's why I'm saying I'm not interested in tricking you. I'm just interested in letting you know that I'm more right than you. But also, it's a part of my job. Okay? Hasan actively says he wants to convert as many people as possible. You know what I mean? Okay? Chad says, but isn't everyone trafficking in this? I don't know any YouTubers not dancing with white supremacy for views, even under the facade of critique or conversation. What makes Hasan special? Well, I don't know how to answer that question because I don't think you're asking a real question in a sense. You can't say, but isn't everyone trafficking in this? What does that even mean? Who's everybody? When I don't know if you just came into stream, but I already put out the beginning statement, foundation to this conversation, which is like, there's a difference between talking directly with people and validating them and talking about them, which you have to do. You have to decenter men. Does that mean you don't talk about misogyny? We decenter men, meaning we don't do it because of men, but we're still going to talk about misogyny, right? Getting sober from drugs does require you to talk about drugs and know about it, right? So like, Like, deconstructing white supremacy will require you to review and talk about white supremacists, but it does not mean you then have to invite them to your home and feed them or like prop them up or share them to your audience. So I'm not sure what you think you're asking or what I could answer that would make sense to you, but like, these are different things. And this is off of questions I got from chat yesterday or 2 days ago. So I don't know if you just came into stream, but.
Get a job or take a risk and employ people under a Marxist socialist system. Yeah. You're incentivized to either run for political office, get as much power as you possibly can to try to extract money away from people that don't have it.
What about cooperatives? Like, I don't understand. There's multiple different ways to do this.
Do that voluntarily. Go do what the Amish do. Go live in northern New York. In America, we have people that live in cooperatives today. Don't tell me how to live my life. You can live your life however you want to.
Don't tell me how to live my life. You can live your life however you want to. Except Charlie Kirk died being a bigot. Calling Muslims stupid, making fun of gay and trans people, making sure to talk badly about women, literally all of this bullshit before he died. You see how conservatives love to say, go live your life the way you want to live it? And then they turn around and create policy that takes away that ability to do that? That's the point. They get to go home every night saying, I fight for freedom, snore, as I literally take away your rights. America claiming English is our language now, claiming there's only two genders. All of these ways conservatives, that's why talking to a conservative is never, ever going to help. They really believe that they get to be both things. They do not even want to have a real conversation. So no, I do not think it's good to platform these people. And I don't think it's worth it to poach one or two people from their audience.
Look, the big difference and distinction is that it's impossible to live as a capitalist in a socialist country. You can live as a socialist in a capitalist country.
It's impossible to have capitalism without socialism. You could never implement capitalism without public roads, without the infrastructure necessary to bring private industry. What the hell are you talking about? You can live in a socialist country. It won't be great. So if it's a fully socialist country, I don't think we've been able to figure that out yet. So I'm not even saying that a fully socialist country will be great. But you have never, ever lived in a fully capitalist country.
You pay tolls? You pay tolls?
So that's it? Their financing?
Fee. That's not socialism. That's if you use the highway, you pay for the highway.
Highways are
you pay
not
a gas tax.
Okay,
you pay a gas tax. So if you drive a car, you pay into the highway fund.
Yeah,
That's how it works, Hasan.
You're right. Socialism is just what you want it to be, and not what it actually is. You're right.
Never mind. A program that will not benefit you to send the money to someone else that is in a different socioeconomic circumstance. Free market capitalism is the greatest wealth-creating engine in human history. It's lifted more people out of poverty, and you are a beneficiary of the very system that you are bashing right now.
No, because it's not free market capitalism. It's so stupid. When the last time we had free market capitalism or something close to it was leading up to the Great Depression, okay? There's no such thing as like, we have a fully free market. Where is the fully free market? If you like a decentralized government, why don't you go live in Somalia? There's decentralized government there, all you want.
Well, so we are more capitalist than we are socialist right now. And everywhere the free market...
Oh, so you admit that capitalism and socialism coexist. So thank you for proving my earlier point.
Hasan, we have some
Okay, do you guys get my point here? What is this? What is going on here? Okay? What is going on here? Is this what you think is better? You think this is good? You think somebody listening in this audience, like, this is worth it? All it did, listen to how many people were clapping for Kirk over Hasan. And understand that. Understand that. And that's the point. Okay? This is not going to liberate us. And this is why I said the other day, and you can agree to disagree, absolutely. But yes, I think not only would it be unethical, but I think you would be very disappointed if I ended up having on, I don't know, Blair White or anyone from, Ben Shapiro's group of people. Or if I ended up coming to stream, like, even when I would collab with centrist, people were upset. And they were right to be upset because, again, the way when we collab with people, the way I collab with people is to say like, hey, how are you? I'm so happy to have you here. And it's hard because even when you're disagreeing, it's really hard to really push back in a way that doesn't make you run around in circles. Who can you bring on a platform with you that's bigoted, that doesn't just turn into you platforming that person and using it as a mutual benefit to rise to prominence? Like when Ethan would debate Fresh and Fit. Why at some point was he even talking to Fresh and Fit except to platform them? Because he thought it was an easy dunk. All it did was introduce more people to Fresh and Fit. All it did was validate him more, right? You know what I mean? It's just like, I know this sounded good 10 years ago. I know this sounded good 15 years ago. But why would it sound good now? with these people who have never changed. They've been on the internet just as long as us. Listen to me. You've seen me change over the last 10 years. You've seen me drastically, radically change my mind. Give me anybody else who's done that work in that community that then would all of a sudden change their mind because they're talking to Brittany Simon, and or their community would feel a desire to change. These mostly misogynistic men coming on a woman's platform is not going to change their mostly misogynistic men's minds, right? So it's all about ponage at that point. Right? It's all about like getting one up on the other, right? Chad said, I will say I did enjoy when you had genuine conversations with people who thought differently, but looking back, the other parties were rarely genuine and did bring harm your way. Exactly. That was the issue. Like, as much as I was coming in such good faith, I didn't recognize that they were using me. Like, it was so silly and naive of me in so many ways to show up and be like, because I didn't personally, like, I was like, I don't care, dude, they're on a journey, but it was hurting my audience. And I was like, oh my God, like this is, and then they would harass me when I realized like, oh, you're not like genuinely talking about idea differences. You're just weaponizing your audiences. So again, like when we have these conversations, know that not only do I have the lived experience, but also even Hasan had to stop talking to these people for exactly those reasons. Because as much as like he has to be strategic as well on who he collabs with because of these things. Otherwise, if this was still good, that's why I don't understand why he would still talk to Charlie Kirk. Why would you talk to Charlie, but not like Destiny or Vosh? Because they're not much different. I don't know why you would pick one or the other. So the fact that he was willing to talk to Kirk, be associated, be on stage with Kirk 2 weeks before Kirk's death, or 2 weeks after Kirk's death, makes no sense to me. Because in my mind, once you let go of this group, you got to let go of this group. And that's what I'm trying to do is like, that's why when those boys came to me and they were like, Brittany, you're being too nice to Sneeko. You're being too nice to so-and-so. I was like, okay, I'll stop being nice to all the boys that are misogynists. And all of them got cut out. And they were like, wait, not me. And I was like, no. If this is the group of men we're getting rid of, all of you got to go. Because if that's the line, the only reason I was open-minded was because I thought it would be like a good tool for them to maybe change their minds and or help them on their own personal journeys. But all it did was make people sympathetic to them. All it did was make them get good publicity. All it did was like fuel them. The only people who got rich during that era were the men. Reminder that all of us girls during that era made okay money, but all the men became millionaires. Sneeko became a millionaire. Destiny was making like 80K AdSense on his videos. I've never made that kind of money. So then the only people who benefit, Ab and Preach made $1 million just talking about Fresh and Fit alone. So all of the girls who collabed, all of the women who tried to like be in this space, we didn't make capital. And it was because we were being used as cluster bees, as women, as silly feminists, as all these things. And we were being used by that whole community because they were never going to budge on their ideas. They were only just being nice to the girls. It's not worth it. And that's why women are so critical of Hasan. Because we see the same things in Hasan, it just is in a better package. But, you know, it's really hard to deconstruct patriarchy. It's really hard to deconstruct your misogyny. Even as women who suffer from internalized misogyny, it's really hard. It's really difficult. Anyway, so that's my opinion on that, okay? That's why I think there is a difference. Again, if you're a politician, okay, just to summarize, if you're a politician, you have to represent your population. You have to represent your voters. So Kamala Harris should have gone on she should have gone on every show Trump went on. That would have been the best strategy. And the fact that she didn't was bullshit. And the fact when Kamala Harris went on Call Her Daddy, she only spent 20 minutes with her. I said 4 hours like Trump did with Joe Rogan was complete bullshit. And this is why the Democrats are so fucking unlikable. Because, you know, even though they're the same as Republicans to progressive, this is why they are so fucking unlikable. And this is why conservatives literally think you're snobs. Trump, who's literally so busy, went on Joe Rogan for 4 fucking hours and Kamala Harris couldn't Call Her Daddy 20 fucking minutes. Are you serious, bro? And that's what I'm saying. Like, how did you think that was gonna land? Even with the documentary for Call Her Daddy, which I did review, she even says like, that's the fastest interview I've ever done in my life. It was over in a blink of an eye. And I was like, see? How was that going to win over voters? From people, like even going on Dave Ramsey, it looked so wholesome. Trump was so likable. Dave was like, I also invited Kamala Harris, but she declined, or like they didn't get back to me. And I'm like, dude, My bro, see, if I was a politician, would have done those shows easily. I could have been so likable. I'd be like, my mom and dad love Dave Ramsey. They followed the Dave Ramsey plan. They got out of debt. They're financially well off now. He would have been like, oh my God, that's great. I'd be like, that is great. Now, how can we get other Americans well off as well? How can we help other Americans? How can the system support other Americans, struggling Americans? But like, she didn't do that. And so it just looks snobby, you know? So all of this to say, again, every one of us has a different role to play, and we should all be considerate of that role that we play, and we should be considerate of just making sure we know how we see ourselves. Yeah, because I think when I came back to YouTube and I went through that era of debate bro bubble, I just really wanted to be the girl who just kind of showed up and had some fun and said philosophical things and dipped. But then I realized like, it was just causing so much more harm than good. Like, as much as I want to show up in the world as like this level 5 who fucking just says things and the world can take it or leave it, it doesn't work that way in the world that is suffering so deeply. And so the best thing I can do as a person in my position is really make people feel reassured that they have so much more power than they think they do, but all of it comes from like has to come from a deep desire to change and a deep desire to learn. And without that, there's nothing to be done. Until people deeply want to change, deeply want to be less bad, like nothing can change. And so I'm just hoping to give you guys tools to do that, right? But ultimately, like, I don't get to say what people do. I can't control people, and neither can you, right? You know? Yeah. Yeah, Chad says, I think your anecdote about Dave Ramsey, I think it's philosophically good for you to be able to humanize conservatives and have a conversation with them. As a politician and as a neighbor, yes, not as a YouTuber. YouTubers should not be collabing. Progressives should not be humanizing bigots. Humanizing them philosophically, not politically. And that's what I had to learn the difference of. Because like, I remember collabing with Lauren Southern, and I remember being like, why are we afraid of this like tiny white woman? But like, it's because it's literally hard to be afraid of her, except politically, when you realize she has all of this power and all of this ability to do X, Y, Z. And then it's like, well, I'm not afraid of Lauren Southern, literally. I mean, I could obviously win in a fight. What we're worried about is the power she has in connection to political power or moving things forward or convincing a group of people to do X, Y, Z. So like, yeah, you might not be worried about her, but it's not her as an individual you're worried about. You're worried about what she represents and how she impacts the world. But remember that the men around her are still the most in charge. Remember, Lauren Southern never had any more power than the men in that group. The men always had more power over Lauren. Remember that. Remember that. And that's why I think patriarchy and misogyny are so hard to deconstruct from the white woman position of power, because though white women have power, they're still women under patriarchy. So they're never, Charlie Kirk's Kirk is never going to be the leader. She is just secondary. Candace Owens is secondary. None of these women will ever be considered the big hitters compared to the men. As much as the illusion tells you otherwise, they will never be. Which is why Hasan is the most prominent leftist voice. What woman could ever be the largest progressive voice compared to a man? Under patriarchy? I don't think so, girl. You know what I mean? I don't think so, right? Yeah, Chad says, I think her story about sexual assault is a good example of that. Exactly. Humanize Lauren Southern because she was raped by Andrew Tate according to her own story, which I believe her. But do not humanize her political standing. Do not humanize her as an activist. Humanize her as a woman who was raped by a man. That is where she deserves humanizing and dignity, because nobody should be raped. And that's it right there, which is why Hasan was so disgusting for making that rape joke about conservative women. At that college, that joke he made, that's why I'm saying abso-fucking-lutely not are we going to make jokes about who gets to be raped. Okay? Nobody, ever. No one. Okay? Okay. All right. We did it. That's it. That's the end of this segment.